Hey, we're talking the horror host Ruby Tombsday. Up next on Geek Out SA. And welcome back to Geek Out SA. It's Friday and we're having fun. And I made it. I made it a tiny incy-wincy bits late, just like 3 minutes late.
We're so glad you're here.
We're here, and I made it. I was actually at Alamo City Comic Con, but we're here with Ruby Tombsday, finally. We get to see her in the flesh, or dead flesh.
Dead flesh. Rotting corpse.
Rotting corpse and stuff. So, give us more information about Ruby Tombsday.
Well, first she has to remember to answer to it because it's a new persona. So let's get that out of the way.
Well, this is probably when you're put together parts of so many different people. Mm-hmm. Literally, it could be difficult. I'm a horror host by committee.
Mm-hmm. Horror host by committee.
Yeah, Dr. IKEA. It was terrible.
I got voted in. And this part got voted out, so...
You think this is bad? You should have seen the last face I had. But yes, what I wanted to do is to kind of keep the tradition of the horror hosts alive. Mm-hmm. In the tradition of names like the Great Zachary, of Svengoolie, of Elvira, even Joe Bob Briggs, all the classics.
In fact, Joe Bob Briggs was just here not too long ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of cool.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to get down there for that, unfortunately.
That would have been awesome, though.
But
neither did I.
Yeah, but it's something that people still really, really love to do. I still love it. Some of them are still out there. Like we have Dr. Gangrene, Dr. Acid is another YouTuber who's doing a horror host weekly thing on Friday nights. And we have, of course, Svengoolie's been doing it straight now for 36 years now as of this October.
Wow.
Is Elvira the only woman that did horror hosting?
Pretty close.
I hear a lot of men's names, but...
Yeah.
Well, at least she's the most recognizable one.
She is.
She is the most recognizable.
She is. The other big name for horror hosting when it comes to women was actually Vampira, who was right before that, but she only got about a season and a half before she got canceled. Interestingly enough, her show is what led to Elvira having the character.
Really?
When they were going to try to bring back, CBS was going to try to bring back the Vampira show again, and they were talking to her and creative differences. She couldn't get along with the production team. They couldn't get along with her. They couldn't put together anything that either one of them could agree upon. She goes, well, I know this great person, Cassandra Peterson. She's great. You got to check her out. I think she'd be great at this. Oh. And they said, well, grudgingly, okay, fine, we'll talk to this. And they went and they saw her, and she was what's the second city? It was Groundlings. She was on an improv team. And they saw her doing some stuff locally in L.A. And I said, well, take that ditzy hippy dippy character that you've got, and that was actually the name she gave the character she was doing.
Ditzy hippy dippy.
Says, come over here, put this on, and use that character to see what we can do. And so she took that, vamped it up a little bit, literally and figuratively.
Yep.
And they said, we love it. We went straight live with it. So 2 weeks, she got the recommendation from Vampira. 2 weeks later, she got the job.
Wow. And
then she became probably one of definitely like the top 3 horror hosts in history, and definitely the most successful female horror host ever.
So you watch a lot of horror.
Yes.
So what do you plan to do with Ruby Tombsday?
Well, one of the things I want to do is a lot of the stuff in San Antonio. We've got a great horror community here in San Antonio.
Well, except now they're trashing the ghost tracks. Just a thing.
Yes, that's...
If you're from San Antonio, that's a thing. I think it's just because it was debunked so much that it wasn't really as fun anymore. I don't know.
That part of it, but a part of it too is just it was getting too dangerous to run modern trains over it. It's deteriorated over the years so much that it just couldn't keep up to the wear and tear. So they're actually going to be grading that, leveling it, and in process that'll undo the illusion there. But we've got a great horror community in San Antonio. We just don't have a whole lot of horror stuff to do. It's getting better. Like MonsterCon is getting bigger and better every year. Yeah. But I want to see the tradition of the horror host kept alive. So what I'm looking to do is host a review of a classic horror or monster movie, old school classic sci-fi type stuff too. Like once a week, do a show on that, and then once a month or so, actually host a horror movie, some public domain or classic item, and do that in the tradition where you have your interstitials, your cutaways, things like this that you normally see, like on Svengoolie. So you've got all of that hoke, because you need to have the hokey stuff, you need to have the camp, it's traditional. Yeah. But at the same time, kind of bring that forward a little bit, so have our scary stuff, our spooky, our dark stuff, with the humor and everything else too.
So we've been doing horror for October, and we had Charlie on before, and he's kind of new school horror, right? Halloween and It Follows and all of that type stuff. And you're more of the old school horror, right?
Yes. Yes.
So who are some of your favorite characters in the old school horror?
If I had to pick an all-time favorite, it's probably going to be Count Orlok from Nosferatu. I believe that was 1923, or 19. It was a silent film. Starring Max Schreck.
With the pointy?
Yes, the pointy ears, the really long fingers.
Yeah.
It is.
That was a German?
Yes.
Film? Yeah.
Yeah. Carl Freund was involved with directing that one, and he came back to direct The Mummy, for Universal. Yeah. A lot of what you see in the Universal Dracula is lifted, almost entirely from Nosferatu, even though Nosferatu was based on the stage plays of Dracula prior to that, and actually Bela Lugosi was in those stage plays before either movie came to be.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
But of the classic Universal monsters, if I had to pick a favorite from there, the stuff that people know, and is probably going to actually be Dr. Pretorius from Bride of Frankenstein. Bride of Frankenstein is the most successful in terms of story, in terms of,
like that.
of all the classic Universal movies. And the classic era pretty much runs from Dracula, Frankenstein, Invisible Man, Bride of Frankenstein, Mummy, Wolfman. Yeah. And pretty much those movies specifically. Some people will include the Creature of the Black Lagoon, which I dearly love. I know Linnea Griego's a huge fan of too. Cool. Those belong to the Universal Studio, and they're a part of their monster line, but they're not really considered part of the classic era because they came so much later. I think that was 56 when the first Creature of the Black Lagoon came out. That was during the whole 50s 3D.
Yeah, because I remember watching that in 3D, and that was really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it was so far before I was even alive.
Yeah.
And all that, I'm just like, and it's 3D, and I was like, that's so cool.
I don't know, that old 3D used to make me nauseous.
The old red and blue?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, it made me feel funny.
I
don't like it.
I haven't experienced that yet, well, except, what was it? Tron Legacy. We went to see that, and the glasses I got were scratched all the way across the front. So I was getting like fractals of what was on screen.
Oh yeah, no.
That was the only time I've ever had a reaction to 3D. The closest I found outside of that is remember. Gosh, I would have been, maybe this was before your time. I would have been probably 10, 11, somewhere around there. So that would have been like 83, 84, something like this.
Yeah, but we're all the same.
I just keep you guys are so much younger than me. I'm used to everybody being so much younger than I am.
Hashtag old people problem.
Right? I believe it was Ken's 5 here locally. They did a big promotion. They actually showed the White Gorilla on TV in 3D. But the problem was they showed a colorized version of the original black and white 3D film and distributed the glasses, etc. So it really didn't work.
Yeah.
Wow. And of course, you try to do this on TV for the first time when that just really wasn't being done. It was designed for theater. It was destined to failure. But I sat through that whole thing with none of it in 3D, those glasses on, and thoroughly entertained.
Wow. Did you ever see the original 13 Ghosts?
No, I haven't. And actually, that just. Oh gosh, there's. Actually, tomorrow night Svengoolie is 13 Ghosts.
The original?
Yeah.
Because I've never seen the original, but the remastered one scares the bejesus out of me.
I haven't seen
it. Scares the bloody bejesus out of me.
Well, with
then this man over here. Every time I'm watching a scary movie, first of all, I have to put my feet up on the couch because I'm scared and there's monsters, right? And he's like, put your feet down. Put your feet down. Don't you want to put your feet down? Put your feet down. You gonna put your feet down?
No,
I can't put my feet down. I can't put my feet down.
Cool.
And then the porch light wasn't on, so I came over here and I'm like, and so what does Mr. Ninja do? He has to creep up behind me, and right as I'm getting ready to put every time he scares me.
That was funny.
It's not funny.
But as I was saying before, the original 13 Ghosts, you couldn't see the ghost unless you wore glasses originally when they filmed it.
Oh, wow.
You had to wear the glasses, and that's when you can see the ghost, and you couldn't see him otherwise.
That's crazy. I didn't know
So that was kind of neat.
So when is that? You said that was coming on tomorrow?
Tomorrow night, 7 Central on MeTV.
I've got to see that. I'm curious to see what the original was like.
Yeah.
And I think I own the other one, so I think I'll just scare the crap out of myself tomorrow. It'll be fun.
Do it.
Svengoolie's great. And I really do encourage anybody, any horror host you have that you can get a hold of, you can watch. Not competitive at all. I want to make sure that the art form stays alive.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're there to help each other out, and all of them, we all refer to each other. Well, nobody refers to me yet because they don't know.
We'll get there.
Yes.
I'm freshly dug up. But, yeah, that is the goal. And, it's a pretty tight-knit community. And, San Antonio has never had a horror host.
Really?
We had a couple of horror matinee things that we do on TV every week, like Project Terror.
Mm-hmm.
And we would have Matinee at the Bijou on PBS, which every once in a blue moon they would show like an old monster movie or suspense movie, something like that, kind of in the genre,
Mm-hmm.
And then, we had a Kung Fu Theater. So you'd have these things that were kind of on the periphery, but you never actually had a hosted weekly horror show.
Right.
And how we missed out on that, I don't really know. But, because, like slasher movies in particular, and monster movies, huge in San Antonio, always have been.
Yeah.
I'd love to see us go back and do some of the monster movies. I feel like we grew up in this really great time where we didn't know about technology enough to know that things could have looked better than they did, if that makes any kind of sense to anybody. So when we saw them, they had to creep us out in other ways, right? It couldn't just be this shock factor or this gore so much. It was, I don't know, it was scarier. I don't know how to explain it.
It was very much theater of the mind. And, Hitchcock was the best at this. So much of what scared you stupid in a Hitchcock movie was stuff that didn't even occur on screen.
Right.
It may not even be off screen during that particular scene. It's stuff that they set up, they move away from, and you come back to the next scene knowing what must have happened, but you didn't see it. So your brain automatically at that point starts plugging everything in. Oh man, what was that? Oh man, what happened? Oh man,
You're like, something's coming next.
Exactly. And he could get you on that razor's edge and then keep you there for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Which is tough to do. One of the things I love about the old movies, particularly like Universal, is it's some of the best cinematography and the best photography you'll ever see in a movie. And so much of the old classic black and white footage, now, a lot of it's really deteriorated over the years, so it's hard to find clean prints. But like Universal stuff, there's some fantastically beautiful, clean prints out there. And it's amazing. I mean, you can almost count the hairs on a person's face. I mean, it's so
Really?
crisp. Oh, man. In particular, like Bride of Frankenstein, or a great one is Karloff's Mummy.
Yeah.
Where he plays Imhotep. And, every single wrinkle in the face is there. You can pick up everything. And it's that sense of age just comes through the screen so beautifully. That's why Young Frankenstein was done in black and white. They had to fight for that and threaten to cancel the project just to make sure that it would get made in black and white.
I love that movie.
And
roll in the hay.
I just rewatched that one.
When they would say from
From
Bruja.
Bruja. Werewolf? They're wolf.
They're wolf. They're castle.
Oh, we're watching that too. Okay.
I've got a collector's edition of that one where it's got a documentary
Nice.
on making of the movie. It's kind of heart-wrenching now because you see all of these moments with Gene Wilder discussing what it was like, because that was his project. He wrote the whole thing, and was fought to get that made. And listening to him talk about this labor of love he did, because he was a huge, legitimate fan of the classic movies. And now that, going back and studied so much of all of those original films, looking at Young Frankenstein now, oh, that's a reference to this, that's a reference to this.
Right.
If you set that down to somebody who didn't know anything about the timeline and told them it was a Carl Laemmle or James Whale movie, they'd believe you. Absolutely.
And Gene Hackman was in that movie too.
He played the blind hermit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was weird to see him in a comedy.
Yes.
During that time, because he didn't play comedies.
Right.
Yeah, J.P. Heggie was the guy who played the blind hermit in Bride of Frankenstein, which is what that's referencing in Young Frankenstein. And it is eerie how much Hackman looks like Heggie in that movie. I mean, granted, it's not a big makeup, it's not a monster makeup, things like this. So it's really it's hair and wardrobe, but they could not have found a better person to play that role.
Well, just thinking about those kind of details, right? That's kind of one of those things as a viewer, if you're really interested in films, like finding those details, seeing those connections, that's what you really like to see. So it's nice to see them take time. And I think nowadays we don't always take that kind of time anymore.
Exactly. And this is what happens when you let a geek handle the property. Anytime where you've got absolute fans making the thing, you're going to have a far more successful thing. That's a movie, a comic book, a web series, whatever it is. If it's people who are avid fans and have a genuine love for whatever the topic is, that's where you're going to get absolute gold. That was the case with Young Frankenstein. That's why the Marvel movies have done so much better on the whole than most of the I know you and I probably disagree on this one about that. But I think that's why Marvel was so successful in terms of storytelling, in terms of consistency, and they have that love from the fans who came from the comic book world, because people who love the stuff and grew up on it are the ones actually involved. You've got fans all the way across the board, in front of the camera, behind the camera, writing everything. And that just makes a world of difference. That's where you get gold as opposed to, the Constantine movie.
Except for some of the stuff they did with Sony.
Well, that's Sony's fault. Outsourcing.
Well, the Spider-Mans were fairly good, except for the last one with Tobey Maguire.
I don't have a hate on for, and I realize I'm taking this away from horror, but I don't have a hate on for Spider-Man 3 with Tobey Maguire as much as most people do. Yes, it was the weakest of the movies.
Yeah.
And I think they really could have given us choosing a, oh gosh, I blanked on his name now.
I don't know.
The
weakest.
the competing photographers played by the lead actor from that 70s show.
Ashton Kutcher?
No.
No.
No, played Eric. I know his name. And
the short one.
Yeah, that kid.
But yeah,
that stupid actor kid that played that part.
Yeah, playing Brock, he should have been. There could have been a better choice, because he was in canon. He's a jock. He's built like like a lead football player, and all of a sudden he's scrawnier than Maguire. I liked a lot about Maguire. Maguire, I think he had the screen presence. He was adorable all the way through, which Peter's a nerd.
Right.
Yeah.
Having him carry that through, I think was great. Then we get Peter Parkour in the follow-up movies, which I can't deal with.
Colleen, actually, this is another Colleen that's watching us. Yes, we do read live comments, but we're I just opened it up right now and saw it. But hi, Colleen, really thanks for watching. We have Ruby Tombsday here. It's really good. I forgot the last time. What did I call you before? Ruby Tombstone. That's not right, Biz. Ruby Tombsday.
Together,
so I got it right this time.
I know, we were really proud of you when you did the intro. We were like, yeah, he did it. Yeah. We were all excited over here.
Let's see if we can pull off the hat trick.
All right.
I've even got a hat for you.
This is the hat.
I keep thinking you're saying my name. LOL. So yeah, because she's Colleen too. It's a great name.
It is a good name. It's very unique. So it's shocking that somebody else has that name.
So are you gonna plan to focus more on the older horror?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of reasons for that. Just that's the stuff that I love the most, admittedly.
Mm-hmm.
That's the stuff that tends to get forgotten too. I hate to see that fade away, because unless we're buying those DVDs or looking for those movies or reaching out, those are the things that are going to go vault somewhere and disappear. Mm-hmm. It's already happened with so many things, like Werewolf of London, The Man Who Laughs. All these movies that led to the Universal movies are all gone. There aren't prints of these anymore.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so we've lost so much history that I kind of want to keep that stuff going. Everyone's going to go out and see or download the stuff that's happened in the last couple of years, and the stuff that's going to keep coming. That's taken care of. It's digital.
And a lot of this stuff is public domain now?
Yes, a lot of it's public domain. And a lot of it, too, since so much of it is based on classic literature, you get that tie-in, too, where you can kind of nudge them and go, yeah, that's pretty good. Just check out the book.
Read a book.
Exactly. Pick up a book. So Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, Bram Stoker's Dracula, so different than anything we've seen in media.
Right.
And, but really, really cool takes. I think Universal did a good job of taking that material, creating something new without violating the material. A lot of stuff Bram Stoker, I don't think you can really go to screen with what he wrote. It doesn't translate that well on a lot of levels. I would still love to see a novel appropriate Frankenstein happen.
Yeah.
Because things like the fact that the monster is intelligent, eloquent, cunning.
And I really thought Dean Koontz was going to do a good job. He did a Frankenstein series, and he was there. Like, he was on top. It was going really well, and we really liked it. And then Hurricane Katrina happened, and he decided to make changes to the book, and I don't know what he did, but he killed it. He killed it. He killed that series.
I remember when you were reading because you really liked it.
I really did, and I even got the graphic novel for it, and it was really great. And then he killed. It was the most horrible piece of trash ending. Like, it was the worst book ever. I was so angry because then we had waited all this time, right? Because he said, "Be patient. I'm going to do all these rewrites to make it like real." It was awful. It was awful.
Yeah, it's like, I hate to say it, but the most successful representation of what Adam, which is the monster's name, not Frankenstein, but Adam, what Adam was like, the best representation I've seen yet was that horrible Hugh Jackman Van Helsing movie.
Yeah.
Guilty pleasure, I enjoy watching that movie. It's a fun movie.
Yeah, it's real campy, though.
It is.
Well, wasn't there a pretty decent one that we watched that had Daniel Radcliffe in it?
Oh,
it was
Igor.
Called Victor Frankenstein, right?
It's called Igor.
It was called Igor?
Yeah.
If you could find that, it's got Daniel Radcliffe in it, so you're like, oh, Harry Potter. But, yes.
Cool,
Watch that one.
Watch that one. He has not disappointed me yet. I've seen a lot of his, non-Potter stuff, and every bit of it's been fantastic.
The characterization is really great, and Daniel Radcliffe is Igor, but it's this whole backstory of, like, he's a sideshow animal and like what happens to him because they think he's like deformed, but he's not really, and I don't know. It was really cool. It was really good. It was good.
Awesome.
Yeah, you'll like it. It was a good movie.
What are some of the what is your favorite Stephen King movie? Movie, not book, movie.
Stephen King.
Because they kind of mess up
Stephen King?
His writing's fine. The screenplays tend to be painful. Honestly,
if you had to pick one,
if I had to pick one, probably Creepshow 2.
I haven't seen that one.
That one's really great. It's really great. Not half as watched as the original Creepshow. But and you don't get to hear him swear in this one. But
I haven't seen Creepshow or Creepshow 2.
Creepshow, he plays the only human character in one of the vignettes in the original Creepshow.
Mm-hmm.
He's this hillbilly that finds a meteor in his front yard and gets covered in meteor goo,
Okay.
And starts turning basically into a plant and basically a living human kudzu, absorbing the place around him.
Interesting.
But in the second Creepshow, which again are all Stephen King stories put through the lens of the old Creepshow horror comics.
Right. And
he does some great stuff in there, and there's a great nerd gets his revenge thing at the end of it. It's great stories. I kind of like Cat's Eye.
You're picking some obscure ones.
She is. That's her favorite thing. She's like, what is the most obscure thing?
I have been told that I consistently like all of the wrong things out of any particular fandom. So it's just like I've ticked off many a Metallica fan by saying, you know what, I actually like some of their later stuff. Yeah. But
there's only one Metallica song. One.
Nicely done.
Thank you. I'm glad somebody got it.
But Cat's Eye, it's another anthology movie. So you're seeing all these little horror stories all the way through, and they're all tied together by cats passing through the whole thing. Wow. They don't really, in most cases, don't have anything directly to do with the stories, but you're kind of seeing it all through the cat's perspective. Yeah,
that's
that was
interesting.
Cool.
That sounds cool.
I might want to check that out.
I got a soft spot between my ears for anthology horror. So things like the Twilight Zone movie and the Creep shows and all these things. I would really love to see some of the actual, like, not creep show, but creepy and eerie. The old early Marvel and DC horror mags they would do that they got in so much trouble for. They actually had to print them on a different size paper so they weren't called comic books, so they could legally print them.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So all it was is the printing size was a little bit bigger, and they were called magazines, and therefore it was okay to sell them.
Nice.
Because kids don't buy magazines; kids only buy comic books. During the whole scare in the 40s and 50s.
Wow.
But I love because so many of our modern like comic writers now, Mike Mignola, Del Toro, even a lot of these people, even Stephen King himself, they grew up reading creepy and reading eerie, and Tales from the Crypt and things like this.
I love Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah, and because of that, that's where all this other material came from. So
the Crypt Keeper.
Yes, you had the Crypt Keeper. You had the Creep. You had the Goon, the Witch. There was the Undertaker, the Gravekeeper. These were all different quote unquote hosts that they would have in the magazines, introducing each story and tying threads together like that too. So
crazy. So what is your next plan? What do you plan to do? I feel like I've asked this question again, but like, you're gonna go on YouTube, right?
One of the first things I really want to do is kind of do a series, go through, introduce people to the, and it sounds weird saying this when movies from the 1930s, but introduce people or reintroduce people to the Universal classic stuff.
And so since it's open license, you can play it. So you're gonna play it and interact with it, right?
Well, Universal being Universal, a lot of that stuff I have to do it legally from the perspective of reviews. So I can show clips and things like this in pieces, but actually hosting those movies,
show the whole
I probably
thing.
can't host those.
Gotcha.
But down the road, I kind of hope to be able to work with the Alamo Draft House locally because they can get the licensing stuff for this, and they will do that kind of thing from time to time. So I'm hoping if we can get the community hip to what we're doing here, then host live events with the Alamo Draft House.
That would be cool.
Things like that. Cool. You can do. There's provisions for viewing parties. Do something like that, like San Japan PAX. What have you there? Do a better viewing room. I don't say better viewing. That sounds judgmental. I don't mean it that way. But do a more advertised and put together an intentional version of the viewing room, like they did at MonsterCon. Just make the screen a little bigger, set it up, and kind of just make it more of a directed event rather than just a hangout.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that, but I think that the viewing rooms were such a key thing back in the day of good horror conventions. Do something like that. Another thing I want to do too is I want to do in December just a run of Christmas horror, because you've got fantastic stuff like Santa's Sleigh,
Like
Silent
Krampus,
Night, Deadly Night,
like that
Krampus.
kind of
There were there was one almost like Christmas horror anthology we saw 2 or 3 years ago. The title escapes me now, but you end up with an almost Van Helsing version of Santa Claus, where it's just he's there to fight the Krampus each year, and this is battle of good and evil that happens on an annual basis since time immemorial. I'd love to do something with that movie.
That would be cool.
But and the big chunk of what I'm trying to do too is we have yet to have a transgender horror host in history. Period. It hasn't happened before, so that's kind of something I want to see happen. And so
now it's going to.
Well, you're right here.
And now I'm doing it. So
let's go. Let's
time
do
to do my
it.
part.
Yep, it's time to do your
Let's
part.
have it happen.
Well, and we actually know somebody who has a Krampus tabletop game, so maybe we should just do a whole like Krampus themed thing, right?
Awesome.
And just do it all, yeah.
I saw that at International Tabletop Day. I was vending, so I didn't get a chance to play.
Yeah, it's cool. It's a good game. So,
awesome.
We could all do some Christmas horror. Nothing like Christmas horror. Woo! That's what everybody thinks so.
What's the next horror movie you're gonna watch?
I'm trying to get a copy of it's one of my favorites, Freaks. Now, this was done in 27, I believe. It was actually Todd Browning wrote and directed that movie, and Todd Browning's the one who directed Dracula for Universal. And this movie has been banned in like 40-some countries. It was banned in 35 states in the U.S.
Wow. Really?
Yeah. Because it was just considered too shocking, too horrifying, and it was about the lives of sideshow attractions in traveling circuses.
Cool and traumatizing at the same time.
Well, it was fantastic because it actually starred acts that were acting with Barnum during Barnum's heyday. So a lot of the people that you see, like mentioned in The Greatest Showman, were actual acts that appear in or are referenced in Freaks. So that's the next one I want to see. I'm anxious to see, I know it's new, but I want to see Suspiria because it's getting such rave, mind-blowing reviews. Just saying it's the scariest thing anyone's seen in a long time.
Is that the one where it's like the soldiers and they're doing something to turn the soldiers? Is that what that one is?
I don't even know anything on the background of it yet, other than it's going to be releasing, I think, on Netflix. It's a Netflix original.
Oh, no, that's not the one. There's something that's coming out in the theaters that looks scary, where it's like soldiers. It's like World War II-ish, then they're doing like some kind of experimenting on the soldiers and something, but then they turn into monsters.
Cool.
And it's kind of a gore, hack and slash kind of, but like suspense. It's more of that, like, you see the blood splatter, right?
Awesome.
And you know something happened, but you're not sure what, and then, you know, everybody's peeking around.
Oh, that kind of reminds me of, like, Black Mirror's Crocodile.
Black Mirror is great stuff.
Black Mirror is sometimes what makes my stomach hurt. Crocodile made my stomach hurt.
It's like great stuff.
Hated it. Hated it.
Not as good as Metal Hurlant, but still.
So, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, I'm over here.
Well, other than here.
On Twitter,
online.
Facebook, and Instagram, all on just at Ruby Tombsday. And that's TOMBSDAY, all one word. Tombsday. And then all of the updates for when we bring up the YouTube channel, all this stuff comes up. All of those updates are going to be on all of those platforms. So if you're following any of those, you'll get absolutely everything we do. And the show's going to be Doomsday Toy Shop.
And
sorry, first week of the new teeth, literally.
And when do you plan on doing your first shows?
We're planning on doing the weekly shows on Tuesdays.
Nice.
Right? And then I want to do, when we start hosting full movies, I want to do those on the 13th of every month.
Oh, that would be cool. Yeah. Obviously.
So, yeah. So it'd be on every Tuesday, and then the full movies will always be on the 13th.
Okay. So you have your channel already? You're good to
Yes.
go with that? And
Yeah, we're just getting that stuff. We're still getting it set up, so I haven't released anything on that yet.
Okay.
So, you know, I'm going to be making an announcement within the next week on all of those platforms, and we'll have all the information for that stuff.
Fun.
Awesome.
That'd be exciting.
Awesome. So do we have more stuff going on? Like we had, like when's the next horror convention that's coming up? Do we know? I know there's a horrific film festival that's coming up.
That horrific film festival was, I think, last week or the week before.
Oh,
I think it's just
well, I missed it then.
horrific film fest just passed, unfortunately. So I mean, the next horror thing that I know of in San Antonio, sadly, is going to be MonsterCon next year.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
We don't have a whole lot of horror convention stuff happening in San Antonio.
Yeah, we just had the zombie walk. That was
The
what last
zombie
week.
walk
That was last weekend,
last weekend. Yeah.
I know that we have Texas Frightmare Weekend coming up. That's in Dallas, but that is one of the the top 5 horror conventions in the U.S. So that's a big one, and that's coming up in November.
And what do you have planned for Halloween?
What do I have planned for Halloween? We're actually going to try to honor Sam from Trick or Treat. So we're going to follow the rules. We're going to stay home. We're going to eat candy. We're going to hand out candy. Make sure that always check your candy. That's one of Sam's rules. And hopefully watch Trick or Treat.
Nice.
We actually have a life-size Sam doll sitting on a chair in our living room all year round. And I'm actually making him. I'm a leather crafter on the side too, and I'm making him
and a nice hat.
Thank you. This was made by Nerd Wife, my wife.
Nice.
All hand-tooled leather stuff. There's a gimmick you can't see on camera too, is that there's actually details in it hidden that are glow in the dark.
Yeah.
We're making the lollipop from Trick or Treat for Sam to carry around.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
So we got to make sure Sam gets his candy too. He lives in our living room, and
Right, and we don't want him to be
You don't-
upset.
he walks very quietly.
What is he like, Mints?
Mints? I don't think he would like mints. I think he's a chocolate kind of
Chocolate kind of guy.
Chocolate and Jawbreakers. Yours or somebody else's.
Very nice, very nice. Well, thanks for coming here and
Thank
checking
you.
stuff out. I really appreciate it. It's good to see you again because
You
it's been
too.
a while. And glad we finally got to see you as Ruby, which I've actually gotten to do that once not too long ago
At MonsterCon.
at MonsterCon, so
Yeah.
that was kind of cool. But thanks for checking us out. I'm Vince.
I'm Colleen. That's Ruby. Stewart's over there.
Geek out, SA. See you later, guys.